Welcome to the UCM Interface Bible Study dito sa 702 DZAS-FEBC RadyoTV Agapay ng Sambayanan. Isa itong conversational expository Bible study program hatid sa inyo ng UCM Interface, ang Young Adults Ministry ng Union Church of Manila. We do our best to study context and let Scripture speak for itself. Ang programang ito ay isang teaching ministry ng Union Church of Manila, a church of many nations committed to making disciples who are transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. Sa season na ito, pag-uusapan natin ang Book of Jonah. It's a very short book, 4 chapters, 48 verses total, and a very familiar story for most people, and may even be one of the most popular prophets in the Old Testament, especially with kids' material. But don't be fooled, this is packed with learning about God's character, mercy, love, and grace. Sa episode na ito, we'll be discussing Jonah chapter 1. My name is Gutch, commercial voice artist.
Ako si Rainier, Director ng Young Adult Ministry sa Union Church of Manila.
I'm Anna, I'm an artist and I also teach elementary students.
My name's Anton and I'm a data strategist.
Okay, tuloy tayo sa part 2 ng ating discussion ng Jonah chapter 1. If you wanna review the first part ng discussion namin, check out the full episode sa UCM Interface Bible Study sa Spotify at sa YouTube.
Ano nangyari sa verse 4?
But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship threatened to break up.
Sino yung first agent ni God?
The wind.
The wind, creation, nature.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened?
A wind came and a mighty tempest came on the sea.
God used a force of nature, a force of creation, and it obeyed God, right? Immediate naman, obey ako. Ganun, di ba? Pero may effect siya. Kasi
Nakalug yung ship.
nakalug yung ship, and then it threatened to break up the ship. All right, now next, verse 5.
Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God, and they hurled the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship and had lain down and was fast asleep.
So, nagsisigawan na sila, panic na sila, lumulubog na yung bangka nila, tapos yung prophet tulog.
Okay, pero Anton, nakailang down na ba tayo?
Up to this verse, I count 4.
Ano yung second down sa verse 3 that you discovered?
So he paid the fare and went down into it. I'm
Ayan.
assuming this is the boat.
Because in the NIV, it says aboard. It's actually down. So nakadalwa na sa verse 3 pa lang. And then in verse 5,
Yeah, going down to the inner part of the ship.
okay. So nakikita niyo yung direction. Can you see the descent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is going deeper and deeper. Now, Anna, ang assignment ni Anton is down. Ang assignment mo, fear or afraid.
Yes.
Okay. Una, they were afraid.
So, the mariners.
So the sailors or the mariners. And then, immediately, anong ginawa nila?
They prayed to their own gods.
Oh, and these are
Pagan gods.
pagan gods, these sailors or mariners. They're pagans. And they seem to be more...
Faithful.
Yes, they can express faith in their false god. At least.
At least, diba?
May faith sila. And then they found a solution. Anong unang ginawa nila?
They lightened their load.
Oh, we need to lighten the load. Versus Jonah, he went down below the deck and
Tulog.
fell asleep. Contrast, pagan sailors versus Yahweh's prophet.
Such a sad comparison.
And yes, what does this signify? Is this just physical sleep?
Well, he's really running away from the Lord's call. So it's not just a physical running away. He's also kind of going,
Spiritual.
Parang ayaw niya talaga.
Yes.
Oo.
This is God's prophet who was supposed to fulfill his mission. He refused to do that. And you see what happens with spiritual sleep? Anong epekto mo sa iba?
It was a problem for everybody.
Yes. And sometimes we think that my sin is just my sin. It's private. It's personal.
Yes.
But
May impact pala sa lahat ng tao.
meron.
It's like one light of the Lord has dimmed out and that's affecting the full brightness of God.
Exactly. This is not just physical stupor, sleep. This is spiritual. stupor. And this is what happens if God's people become spiritually numb. May epekto pala tayo. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin, katawan ko lang naman to eh. Personal ko lang naman na buhay to eh. Ako lang ito. No. Right? And you're a prophet. Ano nga yung sinabi dun sa nung lolo ni Peter Parker?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Di ba? Kulang na lang nasa Bible yung quote sa Spider-Man. Di ba? It's very, very true. Our faith cannot be compartmentalized. It cannot be privatized because God affects all of life. And we too can affect all of life. And so if we disobey, may impact siya sa iba and other people can suffer also because of our sin. Alright, so ano ngayon? Sino yung next na kumilos? Verse 6.
So the captain came and said to him, "What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, call out to your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us that we may not perish."
So yung captain naman, yung nag-move.
Captain naman, una yung pagan sailors, now the pagan captain. Sila yung kumikilos. Kumusta naman si Jonah?
Ginising, di ba?
Oo, because he's very indifferent.
Yeah.
Nakita niyo yung indifference niya sa mga everything that's going on? Very calloused. Unlike the captain,
Who's actually doing something.
very proactive.
Yeah.
And even yung message niya dito, di ba? Call out to your God.
Call out your God.
May piety pa siya somehow. And then ito yung prophet of God.
Pero kilala na ba nila si Jonah at this point?
Hindi pa
No.
nga eh. Yun nga,
Hindi
nagtatago pa nga siya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Parang nakaka-shock lang later na parang, ay, Christian pala yan. Oo, kasi nakikita ko yung mga comments sa Facebook eh. Ay, yung mga ganun. And then, eto pa. Yung mga sailors, in verse 7, let's see what they did.
And they said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah.
Again, who's taking charge of the situation?
The
Pagans.
sailor.
The pagans.
So na naman. Parang lahat na ng ibang characters yung gumagalaw.
Oo, si Jonah, tutulog-tulog. Walang pakialam.
Itong cast lots, parang dice to, di ba?
Yeah, parang
yung mga
ganun.
bones, mga ganun klase.
This is like an ancient way of trying to determine the will of the gods. Ganun yan eh.
So ito yung ancient magic 8 ball, kumbaga.
Parang ganyan.
Parang ganun,
Oo. So far, sino rin yung mga agents ni God dito? Yung una, nature. So we have the wind. Then you have the pagan sailors,
Yung captain.
the captain, and this time,
The lots.
lots. The next agent. Kasi, sino ngayon yung na-expose dito? They cast lots and the lot fell on Jonah. Nabisto na siya. So, I hope you're seeing the pattern. God had different agents.
Yeah.
They're being used to slowly reveal the truth. And now the truth has come out. Eto na, si Jonah pala. So, what was their question in verse 8?
Then they said to him, "Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What is your country? And of what people are you?"
Una, kasi tell who is responsible for making all this trouble for us. All right?
Okay.
The next one is,
Ano ba
what
trabaho mo?
kind of work do you do? That question actually means, whom do you represent?
Oh.
Kumbaga, anong kumpanya mo? Parang ganon.
Kanino ka ba?
Whom do you represent? Tapos, the following three questions. Where do you come from? What is your country? And from what people are you? Madaling sagutin ni Jonah yan. Ano yung sagot ni Jonah?
I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven.
Di ba, the first question, whom do you represent? Yung sumunod na tatlong questions, sinagot lang ng, it's a single phrase.
I'm a Hebrew.
I'm a Hebrew. Nasagot na yung tatlo. Pero yung whom do you represent, ano yan?
I fear the Lord.
I fear the Lord.
So how did he even describe the Lord?
Who made the sea and the dry land,
Okay, who made what?
The sea. And he plans to escape by
By
sea.
sea.
which I am trying to
Natakas ka
escape.
talaga sa sea. Siya yung nga yung gumawa ng sea. Diba?
Oo, di ba? Kumusta naman?
Nakakatawa lang dito, diba? I fear the Lord. Talaga? Talaga bang I fear the Lord?
Right. Yes, because this is the hardest question for Jonah to answer. Why? When you say, oh, what kind of work do you do? I worship the Lord. I fear the Lord. It's a question about your
Loyalty.
allegiance,
Yeah.
your commitment, your loyalty. Yun eh. That's the hardest question for Jonah to answer. And he is the Lord who made the land and the sea. How can you run away from the one who created the sea? And you're on a boat. So how do you explain this behavior? This is what?
Foolish.
Foolish. Stubbornness. This is rebellion.
Yeah.
Alam mo na nga eh. You know all the facts about the Lord that you're worshiping, the Lord that you're serving. Alam mo na nga eh. They're all given.
Yet.
Diba? Sinuway mo pa rin. That's rebellion. But can you also see the senselessness of our rebellion against God?
Yeah.
Right? Tuloy pa natin. Verses 10 and 11.
All right, so the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, "What is this you have done?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord because he had told them. Then they said to him, "What shall we do to you that the sea may quiet down for us?" For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. So may fear na naman.
May afraid na naman. Pang-ilan na yan?
Pangatlo.
Pangatlo na siya. So this could also be translated, what have you done to us?
Dinamay mo kami sa pinaggagawa mo.
Dinamay mo kami. What have you done to us? Kita mo yun? Because of his disobedience, he put the lives of these pagan sailors at risk.
Pero parang wala siyang
Why?
pakialam. Who cares? I'm just gonna sleep it off.
Wala.
I don't care about your lives.
Wala siyang pakialam. Wala talaga siyang pakialam. But I guess you can see the contrast ng pagan sailors and then our prophet, Dove, the son of faithfulness. So,
What I find fascinating dito, something about what you said a while ago about agents. Kasi dito, nabuko na siya eh. Diba? So it's like God using different agents to wake up the real agent of God who doesn't want to move.
the real agent.
Everything else, pinapagalaw ni Lord so that the real agent na ayaw gumalaw should.
And we also have to keep in mind, he's an Israelite, and Israelites are called to bring the light of God to the nations, right?
Yeah.
And he refuses to do that. So ano nangyayari? Ay nako, kita mo, dinadala mo sila lahat sa darkness. You have put their lives at risk. So eto, kasi, it's getting worse and worse. So why did they have to ask Jonah? Bakit nila tinanong si Jonah?
You angered your God. How do we appease him?
Ayan.
Buti pa sila. May piety sila to another person's God.
Saka may awareness silang ganun. Kumusta naman si Jonah? Wala talaga. He's not doing anything. Dapat nga, umami na siya. Sorry guys, this is my fault. At this point, may nagsasorry na ba siya? Meron ba siyang remorse? May apology siya? Wala naman. So, anong sinabi niya? Anong solution niya?
He said to them, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you."
Guys, ito yung unang-unang prophecy niya.
Wow.
Diba? If you do this, the sea will come down.
So legit naman.
Legit. Okay. So pick me up, tapos ayan, may solution. Ito yung gusto kong makita niyo eh. Una, sabi niya, itapon niyo ako. Instead of him voluntarily just jumping into the sea.
Talagang
Right?
passive lang siya through the whole thing.
Passive. Not really doing anything. Itapon niyo ako. And then his solution was, anong ibig sabihin nito? Throw me into the sea.
Kill me.
Kill me. His solution is end my life. He would rather die. Because if he dies...
At least the mission is gonna fail.
Yes, exactly.
So sabotage.
Sabotage pa din. Oh my. Wala talagang remorse. And so far, this is all about Jonah himself.
Yeah.
Whereas the sailors were concerned about everyone, even Jonah's safety. In fact, did the sailors want to do it? Okay, Anna, please read verse 13.
Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous against them.
Ay.
So you would expect na the pagans, sige, we'll save our lives, we'll throw you out. Pero dito, we won't do that. You're valuable.
Oh, yeah. At least ino-honor pa nila yung buhay ni Jonah. Even if Jonah was the reason why their lives were at risk. Diba?
Isasave pa rin nila, grabe.
Isasave pa nila
Bayani.
si Jonah. Nakikita niyo ba yung contrast ng pagan sailors versus Jonah? So I hope you can appreciate that. Okay, tingnan natin, review natin so far what these pagan sailors have done. Una, they tried calling on their gods. Number 2, they tried to lighten the ship. Very proactive.
Yung lighten the ship, we'd rather lose this stuff than lose our lives.
Including Jonah's life.
Oh, including Jonah's life.
Yes.
Yeah.
They value everyone's life.
Over stuff.
Over material things.
Diba?
Okay.
Grabe,
And then
no?
they asked Jonah to pray. Sumunod, nag-cast lots pa sila. In-interrogate si Jonah. And then, nag-row. Row your boat. So they did everything. And
Wala.
Lalo pang lumala yung storm. So each time the storm was mentioned, palapit na sila ng palapit sa katotohanan. Itong mga sailors na to. So, in verse 14.
Therefore they called out to the Lord, O Lord, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not on us innocent blood. For you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you.
Who now is calling on the Lord?
Pagans.
The pagans, after learning that, oh, he's the Lord, he's the God who created the seas and the dry land, has Jonah called the Lord?
No, he has
No.
not.
Time, wala talaga.
Wala. And he's supposed to be a
Prophet.
prophet.
Nauna pa yung mga mariners na mag-pray to the Lord kaysa
Mag-pray.
yung sumusunod sa kanya, di ba?
Right. Biro mo yun, nabuo agad yung conviction nung sailors, the pagans, when they witnessed the power of God. Whereas Jonah's concern, his only concern was, how do I not get involved? How do I sabotage this mission?
Yeah.
In verse 14, sabi, don't take it against us, right?
Sorry, Lord, papatay kami.
Oo, may konsyensya. Si Jonah ba may konsyensya? Now, eto na. So, verse 15,
So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. So sila pa rin yung mover, di ba?
Sila pa
Inagis na nila si
din.
Jonah.
Sila lang kumikilos. Pero, ano naging impact nito dun sa sailors? Verse 16,
Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows.
okay, so Anna, you counted
Fourth?
4. So itong greatly feared, they feared a great fear. Ganun yan sa the literal translation.
So, nag-pick up na to the height of fear.
Oo.
Kasi fear, and then ngayon is greatly feared. Feared exceedingly.
Intensified na yung fear of Yahweh, of the Lord. And then what did they do?
Offered sacrifices.
Oh wow, may worship na. And then,
May vows.
may vows.
So, sila pa yung nag-vow.
Sila pa.
Compared dun sa prophet na may dapat na may vow.
Siya yung may
Yes.
vow.
Wow.
So, lahat ng in-expect natin na dapat ginagawa ni Jonah, hindi niya ginagawa, and guess who was
Doing
fulfilling everything that this prophet should have been doing?
The pagans.
Pagans.
Everybody around him.
My.
Yeah.
And then in verse 17,
And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights.
okay, gusto ko i-reserve natin tong verse 17 sa next episode. Kasi tuloy-tuloy pa yan yung the mention of the fish in verse 2. And this is where, again, yung may reference si Jesus sa Matthew and also in Luke.
Right.
We will talk about this in the next episode. Okay.
Sure.
For now, it is very clear to us that anong nangyari kay Jonah?
Everything happened to Jonah, but si Jonah yung hindi gumagalaw from the very beginning. I think the only thing he did here was just run.
And nagbayad siya.
Nagbayad pa, di ba? Nagbayad pa siya para hindi gawin yung trabaho niya.
Yes.
He had
yes.
one job, and the one thing he did was to not do that job.
Okay, ibig sabihin, very deliberate yung action.
Yes.
Hindi to yung, ay, honest mistake, napabayad lang ako. Hindi ganun eh. It was intentional. So this was his rebellion. Okay, may tanong din ako sa inyo. So nakita natin dito yung stubbornness ni Jonah, his rebellion. Do you think he just woke up one day and then he was like this, rebellious and stubborn?
Oh no.
No. He was probably a very nice kid and then became a prophet, probably a very faithful prophet.
I mean, considering meron siyang track record of being a prophet dun sa 2 Kings meaning active prophet siya. Hindi to
Okay.
one-time thing. Pero chances are, nga, parang nag-grow na siya ng bitterness eh.
Yes.
Understandable though. I mean,
Maybe it crept up on him slowly. Kind of like you said, maybe he was that good kid growing up, and he became a prophet. And then kind of slowly the bad news started coming in. Now, oh, this is what the Assyrians are doing in here and here. And then as he hears that, and as he is justly outraged at the things that these people are doing, that feeling in and of itself is probably not bad. But the effect on him might have been that nilamon siya nung anger na yun. And then then he forgot his proper job and instead focused more on these people. They deserve this. They deserve this. They should all go to hell.
Destruction. Parang ganun.
Yeah, like he started thinking that he knew better than God what should happen to these people.
Okay,
Oh,
so may
yeah.
tension. Because I also want justice. May tension nung justice na gusto mo. Justice on your terms versus God's justice. Remember at the start of the chapter, it recalls what happened in Genesis 4, Cain and Abel, and then Exodus.
Evil has come up before me.
There. And God's way of dealing with wickedness is to give a second chance, or maybe many, many chances, to the perpetrators of injustice. I don't like that.
What? I mean, we laugh at Jonah, pero it's so relatable. If we would consider certain people, whoever it is that we would consider as quote-unquote our enemies, I don't think they're as bad as the Assyrians.
No,
Considering
they're
yung
not as
mga-
bad as the Assyrians.
Diba, dinescribe mo yung mga Assyrians. So ito yung pinagagawa nila sa mga kapitbahay ni Jonah, sa mga kamag-anak ni Jonah. Diba? I don't think, I don't know, we can understand yung that type of anger that he had. Pero at the same time, he had a calling.
Right. Bakit kasi nagkakaroon tayo ng ganitong conflict with God's vision of justice, of life, anything?
Because we want to call the shots. We think we know better. Kaya nga diba, na parang, Lord, ba't ganito yung nangyayari? If I were God, I would do this. Which means, Lord, I know better than you.
Right, right. Ang mahirap dito kasi pinapapunta si Jonah dun sa territory ng enemy to send a message of hope,
Compassion.
second chance. So you don't stop bringing that kind of message or the message of God, this message of hope, of reconciliation, of forgiveness, of love, steadfast love, His compassion. You don't stop. Never withhold it.
Hirap.
Ang hirap.
You know what's interesting about that then is that, syempre, throughout when I was preparing for this material, it really, really made an impact for me yung 3 times sinabi tong away from the presence of the Lord. Sa mga kids materials, usually, he didn't want to do what God wanted him to do. Pero dito, it specifically said, he fled from the presence of the Lord. So hindi lang siya, I don't want to do what you want. If we don't obey God, we do not want God.
That's correct.
Because God is the source of all compassion, love, forgiveness. And we don't want that. We don't want this God.
Yeah, itong theme na to, moving away from the presence of God, nagsimula yan sa Genesis chapter 3. Naging pattern na siya sa atin. Remember when Adam and Eve sinned, they usurped God's authority. They were placed on the east side of the garden. And then Cain. Ano nangyari kay Cain?
Yun, farther east.
Right? And then when the people built the ziggurats or the tower in the Tower of Babel, they moved eastward again.
Away from the presence of the Lord. Pero interesting kasi ngayon, the one who's moving away from the presence of the Lord is the prophet.
It's a choice. It's his choice. I think Jonah here represents Israel. Kasi diba, Israel was called to be a light for the nations, but they refused it. They don't want to fulfill their vocation. Ito yung nire-represent ni Jonah.
It's like even the very people of God are moving away from God.
And when we move away from the presence of God, look what happens. We bring death, not life. Kaya tinan mo yung effect na dun sa pagan sailors. Muntik nang mamatay yung mga pagan sailors. This is one of the big themes in the Old Testament. The presence of God is life. That's why Jesus is
The life.
the way, the truth, and the life, because He is the new temple where the presence of God could be experienced.
Emmanuel, God is with us.
He's the Emmanuel, the God who tabernacled with us.
And to not be like Jesus, which is to offer forgiveness for everyone, even our enemies, is to not want Jesus.
And we bring death.
And it's a choice that we can make to bring life, to bring Jesus, or to bring death.
Or bring death.
And yet, even when we do not choose to follow the Lord, He has His ways of working. A while ago, you asked me to note the afraids, and we counted 4. And that has a short story in it. In the first afraid, they were afraid of the sea, of the mighty tempest. And then Jonah said, I'm a Hebrew, I fear the Lord. But his fear was hollow. He wasn't actually following. And then the sailors were afraid again, but now it was redirected. They knew who they were afraid of. They knew it wasn't just the sea, just a random storm, but the Lord of the storms. And in the fourth afraid, in which they were greatly afraid, they knew how to properly worship the Lord. And in all of this, Jonah wasn't reaching out to them. In fact, he was running away from the Lord. And yet, the Lord has this funny way of bringing His people to Him.
Through His agents, like the wind, the seas, the waves.
Yeah.
Those were enough for the sailors to know that God must be feared.
He offers us that privilege to be part of His work, but still His work is not dependent on us.
Yeah.
If we don't obey, then He'll do His work through all these,
Other
through
agents.
the entire world.
Exactly. Even the rocks will cry out. Sayang we're invited. We are invited to participate in His work.
Yeah.
That was sinasayang natin.
Sayang.
Going through this again, this chapter a second time, it's always just so funny to think that this is a prophet. And I like what Rainer pointed out about Jonah's version of justice and then God's version of justice. No? When I was going through this with Rainer, he mentioned we kind of mix our version of what we think is good and what God thinks is good. So in God's eyes, it's good now we're giving these Assyrians a chance to change their ways, repent. But for Jonah, it's like, no, punish them. They deserve it. So sometimes we need to, rather all times, we should be thinking more about what God thinks is good rather than what we think is good.
That's true.
Our way of thinking it is pretty sure twisted na.
Yeah, definitely. There's parang nag-iisip na ako ng mga Bible verses for the kids to memorize. The one we started was, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The knowledge of the Holy One is understanding.
I don't know why, but I felt like that's where we should start.
Yeah.
It is in knowing who God is, the source of all mercy and compassion and love and forgiveness. So if we truly know the Holy One, we truly know God, this is the God who we fear, and listening to Him, diba? Then we can live a good life. It's what wisdom is. It's a good life.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I guess that's it for Jonah chapter 1. And join us for what happens inside the belly of the fish. Jonah chapter 2. Bye!
Bye!
You have listened to the UCM Interface Bible Study here at 702 DZAS-FEBC RadyoTV Agapay ng Sambayanan. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, 702 DZAS-FEBC RadyoTV, and Facebook account, 702 DZAS-FEBC Radio. Hear our full episodes on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, at marami pang iba. Join us at Union Church of Manila, Rada, Corno Legazpi, Makati City.